Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nuvei's Vice President of Travel and Airlines, Jay Abbott. Over to you, Jay.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this travel breakout session titled The Critical Role of Payments in Reshaping the Travel Landscape. Indeed, my name is Jay Abbott. I am the Vice President for Travel for Nuvei. And for those of you that don't know Nuvei, we're a global payments processor. So we're helping companies to grow globally and pay locally. I've got a pretty cool star-studded, I would say, panelist lineup here. So let me jump into the introductions. I have Louise Garratt, who's the head of payments for EasyJet. Louise, hi.
Hey.
I have Penny. Hi. I have Penny Rizu, who's the group digital payments and fraud director for eTraveli. And Penny also used to be the group CFO for a company called eTravel SA. And then I have Chiara Quaia, and Chiara is the Vice President for Market Development, Travel, and Enterprise Partnerships at MasterCard. And hi, Chiara. And last and certainly not least, I have Bas Lemmens, who is the CEO of Meetings.com and President EMEA for Hotelplanner as well. Welcome, panelists. Hi there, Bas. Welcome, panelists. And I would say this is a pretty cool panelist lineup because I think we have close to 85 years worth of travel payments experience going on here. So it's pretty, I think it's pretty amazing. Let me explain how the panel session is going to go here. We have 5 panelists. I'm going to be one of them included. We have 5 topics and each panelist has 5 minutes. So 5, 5, and 5. It's a pretty tight breakout session in itself. So what we've elected to do is please put your questions into the question box itself, and we'll try to tackle the questions at the end of the session itself. If we don't manage to have time there, after the session, there's going to be a virtual networking session, and all of the panelists have agreed to go into the virtual networking session, and there we're going to try to address you. And if we still don't get to the points of handling your questions or the information that's there, then I would guide you to Nuvei's virtual booth. So what we're going to do there is collate all the questions and then put them together. And then based on that, we'll then move it. All the panelists will basically try to answer those so that we've got everything covered for you as well. So starting topic and first panelist will be Louise Garratt, head of payments for EasyJet. And Louise's topic is going to be how leveraging payments data analytics fuels conversion and reduces fraud. Welcome, Louise.
Thanks, Jay. Great introduction. And thanks, everybody, for your time and attention this afternoon. So big data, AI, machine learning, all buzzwords that we weren't familiar with at the start of the millennium, particularly within the payment sector where checks have managed to continue to exist despite all the attempts to finally get rid of them. They're still there. With the growth of contactless, contact-free payments, checks still exist. So all these buzzwords around data are very new in the payment space. But how can payments data really help increase conversion and reduce fraud? Firstly, I think it's important to explore what data, what is it that we mean when we talk about payments data and where does it come from? When it comes to payments, there's a whole buffet of data available, whether it's from your payment service provider or gateway, your card acquirer, the card schemes, internal sales databases, shared fraud services, financial teams. I think what's key is actually just selecting the right data for the problem that you're trying to solve. So if we look at a specific scenario where you're trying to increase conversions in a specific market, you need to understand the reasoning behind why there's been a drop in conversions. Is it because the local website that you have isn't in the local language? Are you not offering the local preferred methods of payments to that region? Who is your target market? How do they prefer to pay? And how do they want to interact with you as they're trying to purchase your goods or services? Now, those are all very important and very relevant questions. And how do we answer those? Essentially, I can hear you ask. And the answer is quite simply with payments data, of course. Depending on the size and scope of your acquirer, they can provide market insights, as can also the card schemes. You know, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, amongst others, have a much higher level view of the world and can provide key insights into those areas. And equally, the same questions asked are totally valid if you're interested in entering a new market that you've not worked in before, along with ensuring that you don't add unnecessary friction to those transactions when you're trying to build market share. As we look and focus on more regional payments, a lot of them tend to have more steps in the payment process than a traditional card payment. And actually, for some of those customers in that market, they expect to see that friction, and it actually gives them comfort that their payment is secure, and they're happy to spend those extra couple of milliseconds just making sure that their payment goes through accurately. One of the approaches that I think is lacking specifically within the travel space is A/B testing. Very few travel merchants actually adopt this approach when it comes to testing. And when you kind of pause and think about it, it sounds absurd, doesn't it? When you think about the giants of Netflix and Amazon, they wouldn't dream of kind of rolling out anything new without doing some significant A/B testing. And it's something that I think hasn't really hit the travel market yet. So how do we really expect to learn from our customers what they really want if we don't test, challenge, monitor, report, analyze, and change, putting payments data very much front and center? And I think another important aspect as we talk about payments data is speed. Are you able to access real-time transactional reporting, or are you always looking at what happened last month? You need to, a specific scenario that we can think about is around decline rates or authorization rates. How do you know if there's a problem? And equally, how can you rectify it quickly if you're always a month behind? How many customers have you lost during that intervening period whilst you were unaware that there was a problem? And if we take again that specific example, what can you do to rectify that issue? The first thing you need to do is be able to identify the source of that issue. Is there a specific issuer in a specific market that for some reason isn't getting the data that they need from you to recognize as a safe transaction for their customers and their cardholders? And in that example, you can see how speed is so important. If you wait till the next month to kind of look at the previous month's rates, you will just continue to lose customers. And I think authorization rates is key with kind of PSD2 and SCA right around the corner. Merchants need to be monitoring their auth rates to ensure that they are highlighting any issues as quickly as possible and resolving those issues. It's absolutely critical.
We have 20 seconds just fine anyway.
Oh my gosh, how that went so quickly. How did that even happen? Okay, I don't even know what to say now. It's totally flown by.
That's all right.
Some of the other things I just wanted to talk about was kind of how we can use payments data for fraud. So a lot of the fraud engines are rules-based. There's lots of payment data that falls into those decisioning. And also as we look at chargebacks, there's things that we can do around mid-descriptors to make sure that they're relevant to the business that we're doing so that customers can recognize those. And I'll stop.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Sorry to cut you off. Moving along.
Fine.
Okay, so thanks, Louise. Next, we have Chiara, and Chiara from MasterCard is going to handle the topic, how streamlining payments efficiencies enables travel companies to save money and focus on their core business and rebuild their reputations. Welcome,
Hello.
Chiara.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, everyone. So it's certainly, I would say, a challenging time for the travel industry. And what we are seeing here, that some vertical of travel industry are recovering faster than other, like, for example, hotel, definitely over airline. This pandemic situation, and kind of repeating myself, but definitely has exacerbated existing payment challenges that for the travel industry. So definitely a lack of visibility and predictability over the payment flow, long settlement period, a lack of automation, and also the risk associated even or with data protection, but also fraud, okay? So all of these challenges have been called a long time for the industry, wide digitization to enable all the players in the industry, large and small, to interact, if you want, in a more efficient or a more effective and with greater flexibility. Now, what we see that happened during COVID, is adding up new pressures, if you want, new significant pressure on the payment side. Definitely the key one is preserving liquidity for the industry and the need of flexibility and visibility across the different payment flow is, I would say, very important. Also, what we are also seeing that this pandemic and the containment measure with travel restriction, quarantine, unfortunately continue to bring significant unforeseen challenges that are affecting the entire sector, like cancellation, change of flight, refund, voucher, and voucher extension even. So I think that our role in the payment flow is really to leverage the technology that is available to better support the liquidity, mitigate the risk, enable the predictability, and deliver the flexibility for the entire travel ecosystem. When I say travel ecosystem, it's not only the travel intermediary, travel supplier, but all the payment, I would say, provider. As ultimately, I think we have to enable the industry to emerge stronger than before and support greater agility across all the sector. While most probably saving money is a clear benefit, and if we had this panel back, most probably December or January, it's been the prime focus. I would say it's not only the only issue now in top of mind, and I think what we see top of mind should be really remove the legacy pain points and all the unpredictable costs associated with the legacy payment process. So what we are seeing is that organizations more than ever now, they want enhance visibility over the payment flow, flexibility, guarantee protection, and mitigated risk. Now, in the travel industry, is made of different players, travel intermediary and travel merchant. Now, each is playing a key role in the industry by serving the final consumer, but by generating value to the industry in terms of sales and booking. So travel intermediary and travel supplier need now more than ever, if you want, to work together because by streamlining, by enhancing the B2B payment process is more than a pure administrative or reputational concern. So on the MasterCard side, we launched a new tiering price of the MasterCard Wholesale program. And we really did aim to increase the price flexibility to allow better commercial relationship, to enable definitely the protection for each of the party, to make sure that everyone is safe, to embrace the current, but also the future growth that we have ahead. So definitely in the recent month, the COVID have brought different, many challenges, all at once. But we think that within MasterCard and within specifically this product, but also with other specific projects that we undertook, I think we designed really to address specific points, so lower the cost, if you want, for the industry, guarantee the protection and the payment that is important for each of the party.
We're down. We're finished now, Chiara, but that was wonderful. Thank you. Well done. Well done. Okay, thank you. Moving along, Penny. So Penny is going to tackle the topic, how COVID impacted the travel industry payments ecosystem. Welcome, Penny.
Good evening, everybody. A difficult subject. COVID is dominating all the discussions. Undoubtedly, COVID has been an unprecedented event, and it has challenged the whole ecosystem. And there is not one stakeholder in the whole payment supply chain that has not been challenged. So we have the merchants, we have the card brands, we have the acquirers, we have the issuers. Everybody has suffered losses and friction. And in certain cases, there were business continuity considerations. So let's see what happened. What's the story when it comes to OTAs and airlines, which I am more relevant, and take it into steps. Mainly during the March and May period, there was an extensive flight cancellation incidents, and that was because of country lockdowns or because of fear of traveling, and all that activity led to an extraordinary amount of refund claims or requests for changes. The industry was not prepared to accept that level of customer requests, and it fast became unmanageable, both for the OTAs and the airlines, but also for rest stakeholders, as their operations, they could not handle that massive wave fast enough. At the same time, there were almost zero sales. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get my point. It was almost zero sales for flights and hotel. And that levels of sales impact tremendously the cash flow, but also challenged different companies' financial positions. So to mitigate for this implication, many OTAs and airlines proceeded fast with cost reductions, and the resources that were handling the customer requests and all this traffic they were reduced. That put even more, challenges on the speed of executing the refunds or the changes. And the cost drain that was implied of all this wave that impacted the refund payout speed, and it created a domino effect on all the customers who were rushing to their banks to file complaints around not getting their services or not getting their refunds. So the whole ecosystem was shaking, and as the OTAs were required to pay the funds that they have not yet collected from the service providers, which were the airlines, the airlines were also trying to survive the heat, and they were gradually releasing the funds, or some airlines that they have paused that and then restarted it again, they still were not fast enough to stem all the compliant waves. So as merchants, the ones who are taking the transaction, were held liable for undelivered services, then cash was flying away from OTAs and airlines' bank accounts when they were acting as merchants. And this is more or less how the story of COVID impacted tremendously the cash flow and financial position of the OTAs and airlines, as well as why the customer experience and all this that we hear out in the news are happening around customers. Now, also the acquirers and the card schemes were also challenged, because the acquirers, if a merchant goes bankrupt, they're held liable for the undelivered services. So they increased the risk assessments, they went into tighter controls, and the way that the acquirers are protecting themselves is by imposing more cash reserves to cover for possible undelivered services in the future. Of course, that was the cherry on the whole situation, because it put even more pressure on cash flow issues, allowing very few flexibility on focusing on future and how to accelerate their growth. Card brands would be the same, no sales. Of course, everybody needs to survive in this industry by making sure we have the right sales level, but also card brands were required to coordinate and manage with all these situations that engaged many stakeholders, the complaints, the issuers, the acquirers, how things are going to move. And that was definitely a big challenge. So
okay,
Penny,
yeah? I have to cut you off, I'm afraid. It's tight. Yeah, I'm very authoritative. Okay.
No problem.
Thank you, though. That was really spot on, and I'm going to add on to that later on. But the next part or topic that we're going to look at, introducing Bas here. Bas is going to cover how efficient payment channels ensure more conversions. Welcome, Bas.
Thank you, Jay. Now, as maybe people know, I'm very long in this industry. I'm like a dinosaur already. Started 22 years ago in the travel industry, and I think a lot of things are changing. And finally, that's where we talk about coming few minutes, is that we have the last pillar we not always took into account as an OTA. It was like a necessity that we could take credit card payments. That was good enough for the till 4 or 5 years ago. But it started all, first we needed a website that people book. We needed better content, because that also helps your conversion. We need better pictures, because it helps your conversion. But finally, the most important thing also is payment. And I don't know, my former speakers didn't really address that, but the world is really changing. In the past, we had some few credit cards and people paid by that. And that was it. And we had to detect fraud. People could use a credit card. But even I know a lot of people traveling don't have a credit card. Or we have, even with big bookings, people have like a prepaid credit card and they cannot even make the booking, because if they make the booking, the card is charged and they cannot spend any money on the holiday. So a lot of things for a better conversion has to do with also how can I pay something. And as said before, I A/B test everything. Every pixel on the website is important for me to get the conversion up, because that's the only thing you can steer a tech company or an online company to get the booking in. And the thing what I was always surprised, I told Jay a few years ago, that nobody really looked at, we call it the black box, the payments. Freight is boring, but the most important thing is that it really could kick off people, because even, if I do in 100 countries, I do business, but people like in Holland, they want to pay by Ideal, or people in Germany with Chauffeur Bochum. In Japan, they use another payment provider, and they not always want to use a credit card anymore. And still, of course, the credit card as a guarantee is still important. But as we also do, we make a lot of prepaid bookings. We collect the money from the client. But the most important thing is you have the same thing I always say, I compare it with language. If you cannot offer the language to your customer, or you cannot search payment language to your customer, people will go away and will find a way where they feel comfortable with. I'll give a good example, because I like always to talk about my mom. My mom is traveling a lot. She pays 30,000 euros a year on traveling. But what she never will do, because she doesn't trust it, is the credit card. So I have to book their trips. So I'm her personal travel agent. But what she really likes, because she learned this the last 5 years, she said, I know how to do online banking. I know how to use Ideal. So why can I not pay Ideal with you? Because that's I'm used to. So it's very important. I think, hopefully, and I see this with companies like from Nuvei, with Adyen, also other companies, finally, and especially, because I just look at the other industry, COVID, good example. Everybody's ordering, nonsense things for their house, but they all are used for very fast payment, fast delivery. So the travel industry also has to follow that. But they think it's difficult, you have to integrate a lot of stuff. No, it's very easy, because you have companies like Nuvei or Adyen, where you get a very simple widget where all the payment methods are in it. And if you want to deal internationally, travel, or you want to have a high conversion, you need to implement that. And I think that people forget that. And always people say, hey, you are in this panel because, payment's boring. No, it's really part of my net revenue. Because if I don't do it right, and even COVID had to pay back a lot of people, have charges, everything, it will cost my profit, because it's still payment, it costs money, and also to process it. So it's very good for yourself internally to look at your payment provider, but also at your website, give what people want. So if, even a good example, if I want to deal with, I want to offer my product on WeChat, I need also that have a connection there that I can pay with a bank account. So the Chinese
15 seconds, Bas.
Okay, then. Thank you. And the most important thing is our futures, our kids, and everything. And you don't want to give them a credit card because you get a bank card. So that's what I get to take away. Look at it.
Thank you.
Increase your conversion. Thank you.
Thank you, Bas. That was brilliant. Thank you. Okay, I'm the last panelist here, so I get to close out this part. My topic is going to be the effect of the coronavirus pandemic on the travel industry as a whole, and how payments will play a critical role in its resurgence. Now, I think I'm going to take the perspective of the acquirer, so the Visa MasterCard processing, because this is what Nuvei does. It's our bread and butter in relation to how we look at this. And as Penny alluded to, essentially, maybe preaching to the choir here, but essentially, if the merchant or the OTA or the airline goes bust, we have to, as the acquirer, pay the bill or foot the bill for the customers that are sitting out there, and that's quite a critical, let's say, a risk situation that we have to be in. Enter the pandemic, and the pandemic then comes in, and what that's done is made the risk situation for the acquirers. And in some cases here, we can talk between tens or hundreds of millions between when the booking is being made and when the actual service is being delivered here. So we're talking quite a substantial amount of money. And what happens from that perspective has been mostly a lot of, I would say, a bit more of a monolithic approach to acquiring for a lot of parts, where they've tried to take a lot of those volumes. But I think what you're going to see in the reshaping from the acquirer landscape is, I think they're going to start unloading a lot more of their risk. So it's going to be more of a sharing landscape between acquirers, a competitive sharing landscape is how I will label it. And I think this is a good thing. I think this is a good thing for the merchants, so the OTAs. I think it's a good thing for the customers. I think it's a good thing for Visa. I think and MasterCard and these things as well. I think it's a great thing overall, because we basically share the risk around some of those parts as well. And I think the service delivery for online travel agencies, airlines, the merchants is actually going to be improved from that perspective as well. If we look at it, how Nuvei has been approaching the pandemic itself, I'll just go back to March. Basically, I think of the ITB for the first time being cancelled. And then I had my managing director and global acquirer, head of global acquiring, he came to me and he said, Jay, what are you going to do? And I was like, I don't know. Everything's flat. It's done. I'm VP of nothing at the moment. He goes like, what's going to happen? And I said, okay, I'll make a plan. So I came back and I made a plan based on 3 basic pillars here. Those 3 pillars, really simply high level put, is looking at the survival of the industry, the revival of the industry, and then obviously moving into growth and thriving. Now, we're certainly not there, but those are the 3 pillars that we're going in. So I came and we got the Nuvei exec team together. And then basically what I said to them was, if we're targeting survival and revival in these parts, I said, the travel industry is hurting. So they go, what can we do? I said, well, you're going to have to put your money where your mouth is. If you guys really want to help out here, you're going to have to properly help out. And I said, this is important for us if we're playing a long-term game, because we want to build long-term partnerships that are built to last here in relation to how we deliver things. So we set out and I wrote up what we'll call the Global Travel Pledge Program. Now, this was a private program, and we reached out to some strategic, let's call it more of the larger players around us, because the program is more fitted for them within the travel industry itself. But that program in itself is directly designed to look at how to support helping merchants, so the online travel agencies, the airlines, everything in the short-term run here, medium-term run, but also with a long view eventually going into growth itself. Like I said, it was an invitation program that we've reached out, and a number of people within the crowd have been involved around this program itself as well. But that is Nuvei's way of looking at how we want to address this and how we want to play a part in it, helping to actually in the resurgence of the overall travel industry itself. That's I would say on a high level essentially what it is that we look at. And if you go from the global acquiring landscape, as mentioned before, I think it's going to be more of a competitive sharing culture. And those would be the sort of takeaways that I'd like to leave everyone with as well. Now I think we have maybe a minute or so for questions. If maybe Mike, if we've got any questions that are sitting in there that we can try to take. And like I said, after this, what we will do is walk into the virtual booth where the panelists will then take that. Otherwise, I will guide you towards the virtual booth for Nuvei, where you can stack your questions in there and email addresses, and we'll support you, ensuring you get the right parts there. So maybe we can field one question before I say goodbyes and thank yous for us.
Yeah, Jay, we actually had a bunch of questions come in, but a couple of people asked about virtual payments and alternative forms of payments, including cryptocurrencies, and just if the panel could comment on, will the pandemic accelerate the adoption of those types of payments?
Who wants to take that? Louise?
That's fine, I'll take it. I think, historically, everyone knows there's a lot of friction between the OTAs and the airlines when it comes to virtual card payments. I don't think anyone, certainly on the panel, anyone probably listening in, is new to that kind of concept. It's been around for a while. And I think that absolutely the pandemic is probably going to quick start the conversations that need to happen to get to a place where we're all comfortable in using those types of payments. Absolutely. When it comes to cryptocurrencies, I think that typically, certainly from an airline perspective, we're never at the forefront of change, I think is probably fair to say in the payment space. Ultimately, we're about getting people on planes and flying them to fun destinations. So I don't think the pandemic will accelerate that. If anything, any forms of change have probably been put on hold. I'm sure it may vary airline by airline, but certainly that would be my initial view.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're at 18 seconds, and I think we're cutting off after that, right, guys? So I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been involved here from the panelist side. It's been wonderful to have you contribute here. I want to thank everyone from the attendees that have given their attention, energy, and I'd love to thank Phocuswright as well. So thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Jay and everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.